Are you interested in creatine that boosts strength without that bloat? Then you're going to want to listen to this. Today, I'm sitting down with Mark, the founder of Con-Cret creatine supplement, to finally settle creatine HCL versus creatine monohydrate. We cover why HCL absorbs better at small doses and how to ditch that water retention and a plethora of GI issues. Besides that, the surprising benefits beyond the gym of strength training and endurance. I learned from Mark all the benefits of having a sharper cognition, stronger immune response, and healthier aging. He also breaks down exact dosing and did it for me live on the podcast. And besides being a company huge into quality control and all the different certifications they have for sports and big-time athletes, if you're looking for a creatine to stay on for the rest of your life, I think this might be the one. Stay tuned. So before we start, I wanted to show you my school community I'm always talking about, but this is where I'm spending all my time. This is where I'm answering people's questions. We're brainstorming, doing coffee chats. I'll be starting a Q&A on Tuesday or Thursday, where basically I'm just giving out free personal training. First come, first serve. And this is the platform I'm trying to grow. This is where I want everyone to join who's over 40, looking at getting overall health, a lean body, and possibly some low-level biohacking. But it's not just me talking on here. I've got other people who are into the space who are contributing as well. So if you're at all interested, get in while you can, and then we'll just grow from there. So other than that, let's get on with the episode. Mark, I just want to thank you for coming on my show. We talked a little bit before we hit the record button on some of the things about how creatine monohydrate versus creatine HCL. And I saw some things out there saying HCI, and you taught me that's just a lowercase L. So for the people out there, HC lowercase L and HC uppercase L, it's just a marketing thing to help people like me realize it's the same product. When I first got on with you, I was talking about creatine monohydrate. I haven't used that for years, either months or even over the course of years with a few breaks, and the amount of bloating I'd get on it. And I don't care what some people out there, men and females, get this bloating. Now, it still does its job, the monohydrate, but no one wants to carry around that extra load. Before we get into that, how you got into what you're doing, your supplement, Con-Cret creatine, and I'll let you take it away.
Certainly. Well, first of all, I'm honored to be on the show. Appreciate you having me on. My background is in science. My degree was in physics with a lot of biochem and toxicology thrown. But I quickly fell in love with the business of science. Myself and another individual, Dr. David Black, started a forensic toxicology laboratory. The original team of that laboratory developed the steroid testing program for the National Football League. That started getting me interested in things that would help with performance enhancement. We were testing athletes to prevent them from using illegal substances for doping and performance enhancement. They really help us do our job, particularly in the area of maintaining strength and in recovery after they've been in strenuous exercise, workout, or traumatic physical exertion from some of the competition. They've got bumps and bruises and all sorts of things, and they've got to get up the next week or within a couple of days and do it all over again, or else there's people ready to take their roster spots. They said, if you're taking our steroids away from us, at least find us something else to help us do our jobs, because right now nothing on the market works. That always kind of hung with me. When I sold out of the forensic tox lab, I started working with some sports medicine researchers, trying to find something that would be safe, healthy, and legal for these guys to take, guys and gals, that would provide the strength, endurance, and recovery necessary for them to do their jobs at an optimal level and be a healthier option than steroids, which are unsafe, unhealthy, and illegal. Looking at a bunch of peptides and amino acid conjugations and different creatine forms, that was where we hit upon creatine hydrochloride, or creatine HCL. We saw that it was the closest thing to steroids in terms of strength, endurance, and recovery, but still safe, healthy, and legal. We dubbed it Con-Cret, concentrated creatine, because its biochemical characteristics allowed a much smaller dose to be used than the traditional creatine forms, including creatine monohydrate, and deliver more creatine to the cells with that smaller dose, and therefore create better effects. And the small doses of the creatine hydrochloride allow people to avoid side effects, which are oftentimes bloat, water retention, GI distress, diarrhea, puffiness, etc. Not everybody experiences those, but there'll be a study coming out of Princeton Research in the next couple of months that identifies, of the men in the study taking 5 grams of creatine monohydrate, over half of them experienced those side effects. In the case of women, it was over 75% of the women in the study experienced bloat, water retention, puffiness, diarrhea, etc. And it all has to do with the uptake or the bioavailability of these different molecules. Creatine monohydrate, you have to take a much larger dose because it's just not as bioavailable. A larger dose is necessary to get a little bit into your system. The creatine hydrochloride is far more symbiotic with the body. Smaller doses deliver a more efficient dose to the blood compartment, which then means it gets to muscle cells, your brain cells, your immune cells, everything. That's a little bit of my background. It's been probably approaching 25 years now that I've been working on and researching and involved in the creatine market. And we have at any given time, 4 or 5 or 6 different studies going on, and they look at both human performance, they look at medical indications or disease states and how creatine can help with those, because there's an advancing and expanding body of knowledge and research demonstrating creatine is remarkable in terms of how it supports people at various stages in life.
Yeah, I've seen the power and use of just what we had at the time back in my 20s when I was using this a lot, the amount of strength and power you have in the gym, because you want to cycle off of it. At that time, they scared us about our liver getting damaged. So we would cycle off of it and you would see everything drop down by like 30%.
Yeah.
So that's been my use with it, but I've held off for a long time just because I never wanted that bloat. And then so I started seeing this HCL. It's good that all these studies you're talking about are about to come out, because right now you Google or even on ChatGPT and there's like nothing on HCL that they're like, it's not convincing enough. Creatine monohydrate's just as good. I'm like, but yeah, but there's problems for half the population on this stuff.
Monohydrate will work in terms of strength, endurance, and recovery, because any amount of creatine you get into your system is helping in those regards. It's just a matter of, do you want that strength plus the bulk, or would you rather have strength, endurance, and recovery plus more leanness and less of that puffiness or water retention? Water in the muscles is good, but the unfortunate thing is monohydrate engenders water in the extracellular parts of the body, because the body's recognizing, okay, we've got a lot of something here that's been ingested that we can't absorb. We need to flush it out. So it holds water to flush that excess unusable material out. It is beneficial if you're taking a 5-gram dose. There's a good study out of the Journal of Pharmaceutics that speaks to the amount of creatine that actually gets into your plasma or bloodstream from a 5-gram dose. It's really about 600 or 700 milligrams. So it's a small amount of that big dose that actually is getting into your cells. But even that small amount is providing that benefit you spoke of. If you can get that amount of creatine into your bloodstream without taking such a large dose and avoiding the side effects, that is very beneficial. And you get that increased performance you spoke of. People really do experience quickly a positive effect from creatine hydrochloride, any creatine really, but particularly creatine hydrochloride. And they say, well, how fast will I know? You can know in one dose. I tell people, take 750 milligrams of creatine hydrochloride per 100 pounds of body weight. So say a 200-pound person will take a couple of scoops or 2 capsules, and then do a workout that you know will make you hurt the next day or 2, that delayed onset muscle soreness. You'll notice it right away. You either won't hurt or you'll hurt a lot less. And that shows what the creatine is doing. And then over time, with increased strength, increased endurance, and quicker recovery, you can train more, which means you burn more calories, build more strength and lean. It's great not only ergonomically, but also from a body mass index standpoint to help people maintain lean muscle mass as they age or keep their body as healthy as possible.
Yeah. What is the science behind the HCL and why there's not the side effects as the monohydrate? Like, I still don't get that besides just knowing that it works.
Great question. Both molecules, creatine monohydrate and creatine hydrochloride, come from a category of creatine known as creatine salts. They're salts of creatine. They're in that same category, but the biodynamics are quite different from one conjugation to another. Creatine monohydrate means it's creatine bonded to a water molecule. Our bodies are 70% water. It sounds like it would be very symbiotic. Unfortunately, that's not true in the GI tract. What we found is that with creatine hydrochloride, the hydrochloride is more symbiotic with the GI tract because your stomach is hydrochloric acid. Your gastric juices are HCL juices, and it provides an opportunity for the body to have more efficient processing. It just simply metabolizes and dissociates more effectively and with greater ability for uptake through the small intestine. So you are able to achieve benefits of creatine with a smaller dose because of the plasma uptake efficiency. It's a really good study done by Dr. Don Miller out of the University of Manitoba. It's presented at the ISSN, the International Society of Sports Nutrition, probably 10 or 15 years ago. It showed in humans the uptake of creatine hydrochloride being far more efficient. A 70% increase in efficiency of dosing helped to put it on the map. Those statistics caught the eye of someone rather famous who started taking it when he was interviewed for a movie that he was making. They asked him, what are you doing to stay in shape and to train for the movie? And he said, well, I'm doing these workouts and I'm taking Con-Cret creatine. we appreciated him saying that, but that person was Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. He was getting ready for one of his Fast and Furious movies, and it came from that data that Dr. Miller mentioned. And as you say, ChatGPT and some of those AIs, they only really know creatine monohydrate because it's been around so long that it is true. It's a fact that it's the most studied molecule. There was more research associated with it. People think, oh, that makes it better. Yes, it has the most studies, but it also has the most failed studies. When you look at some of the applications in which people have tried to apply it, simply because people can't take enough to get the desired positive clinical outcomes. It's failed in a number of studies and is just an older, less efficient molecule. It's kind of like, I sometimes refer to it as the rotary phone's been around longer than the digital smartphone, but not too many people carrying around a rotary phone still. It still makes calls. It'll do the job if you have one, but it's sometimes the advancements of technology are worth the leaning into. We believe that's the case with creatine hydrochloride. And a lot of medical doctors are agreeing too, because what they can't achieve with creatine monohydrate from a clinical outcome standpoint, they can achieve with creatine hydrochloride. And that's in the areas of cognition and Alzheimer's, Huntington's, and a variety of different concerns. Creatine can have a therapeutic effect. Athletes have always known it's great for your muscle energy. People are now realizing it's great for your brain energy, your immune cell or T cell energy, and overall cellular function to keep you healthy.
Yeah. So for just creatine in general, HCL seems like the better choice. It uptakes, you can take lesser amounts, and that's great. Just to kind of refresh myself, creatine in general, it's basically putting your body's holding more creatine phosphate into your muscles, which is way quicker turning into ATP than glucose, obviously fat, all that kind of stuff. So you get your strength gains, endurance, which I felt both of those. All this new stuff about cognition, that's all new stuff to me. What are all the uses of creatine? Can you take it consistently, or do you need to take it in cycles like I was always taught back in my 20s?
Sure. I'm going to treat that in three parts.
Sure.
First one, you said creatine being the better form, creatine HCL being the better form. I would say yes for many purposes, but now if I was an NFL lineman, I would think creatine monohydrate is the better form.
Yeah.
I want the weight and the bulk so people can't push me out of the way or something. So there are applications for which the different forms of creatine are better in terms of a choice. For most people, yes, a smaller dose that doesn't have side effects and delivers more creatine to the cells is a preferable choice. When you think about the different things that creatine can and should be used for, certainly for muscle energy, it connects with a loose phosphate and forms creatine phosphate, which means that it's ready then when ATP, adenosine triphosphate, is expended as the universal energy molecule by all cells in the body. All cells use ATP to fuel themselves. Well, when it's expended, it becomes ADP, adenosine diphosphate, two phosphates and a loose phosphate. And then creatine very rapidly, as you said, takes that loose phosphate and brings it over and reconnects it to the ADP to recycle and make ATP ready for the cell to use again. That's the fastest way that energy can be generated in the body, generated for extraordinary exercise, cognition function, or in terms of your body having to function in the face of a disease state. So when we talk about how energy is put to use by the body, your brain uses 20% of the body's creatine just to think and to stay sharp from a cognition standpoint. Dr. Lily Yang at UCLA showed that the first thing your T cells do when they see a bad cell, like a cancer cell in the body, because we all have cancer cells, wonky blast cells in us all the time. We make billions of cells. Some of them aren't perfect, but our body is ready for that. The memory T cells look at a bad cell, say, hey, I recognize you. You're not supposed to be here. We don't want to let you proliferate. So they call on the killer T cells to go whack it. The first thing that a killer T cell does when it needs to go into battle like that is it armors up with more creatine receptors because it knows it's going to need considerable amounts of energy to win. And what she demonstrated, Dr. Yang showed, was if you give a T cell, killer T cell, enough creatine, it wins all the time.
Wow.
It'll kill all your cells, bacteria cells, cancer cells, et cetera. It's when we don't have enough creatine in our system to help replenish quickly that energy that the T cells become exhausted, and the bad cells might then have the opportunity to replicate, take a hold, and make us sick. The immune system is a really important part of how creatine is key for the body. In fact, the CDC was looking at low levels of creatine probably being responsible for the increase in a number of diseases over the last few decades. People have gotten off of certain traditional diets. There's more people that are eating fish and chicken and vegan and vegetarian diets. And those are great, except for the fact that they usually are low in creatine. The CDC estimates that more than half of the American population is low in creatine stores, and that makes people more susceptible to diseases. And so there's an effort underway to have recommended creatine dosing levels for all stages of life, toddlers, adolescents, adults, elderly, et cetera, in order to try to keep the immune system more healthy and to stave off some of the diseases that have been problematic. As we said, immune, cognition, your heart needs creatine to beat. All of the cells of your body require creatine in order to function optimally, which might sound a little bit like Mark Faulkner here has a bias, but creatine really could be argued to be the most important supplement people can take. And there are a lot of great supplements: protein, vitamin D, fish oil, zinc, magnesium. They're all wonderful, but none of them really matter much if the cells don't have enough energy to use those nutrients. The rate limiting molecule on cellular energy to use those nutrients is creatine. So foundationally, it's extremely important, and people are finding that it's a wonderful adjunct to many other things in somebody's health regimen.
So from what I'm getting is the easiest way to think about this is creatine is basically an ADP recycler, and everything is all about energy. So yes, your brain is probably going to take it first, then your organs, your heart is going to take it next. And then whatever you got left is for what we're trying to do it for, either sports or in the gym. But you have to think that those systems are going to take it first, which is great. So now I understand why you get that cognitive boost and healthy organs. Everything is all about energy. Now it comes down to, okay, I got HCL, it's the better one. And for me, it is the better one because it's just monohydrate's just not working. I get the digestive issues. I get the bloating no matter how long I go on it. How much, I noticed on your product, the serving size is 750 milligrams, which is less than the 5 that monohydrate is, but you got to find your range, right? Every person is different. How do you find what's working for me? It's just start with a half dose, work your way up until you feel some of the benefits. I feel like some of the cognitive stuff, you don't really know if you feel it or not till way later.
The question of dosing is very important, and generally answer that in 3 different life circumstances. One thing about some of the creatine monohydrate research is that when we look at creatine getting into the system, it was difficult at any dose for creatine monohydrate to get much to the brain or to the immune system because of that uptake or bioavailability dynamic. There have been studies where they try to give people 20 grams, 30 grams, 40 grams to try to drive enough into the system.
Yeah. A loading phase.
Right. But those doses are not sustainable for the most people. They're not only difficult in terms of the side effects, they're just difficult to take that much of a compound. The 5,000 milligrams or 5 grams of creatine monohydrate versus 750 milligrams or 0.75 grams of creatine hydrochloride is the dose we suggest for optimal daily health by just about anybody. Your body makes half the creatine that it needs, which is usually about a gram a day. You need 2 to 3 grams a day for normal functioning. So your body expects you to get some from your diet. As we said, the American diet oftentimes is low in creatine-rich foods, so many people need a supplement. That 750 milligram or 0.75 gram dose of creatine hydrochloride usually is enough for most people to have support of optimal health. The second kind of life phase is for people who are fitness enthusiasts and biohackers. They're engaged in strenuous physical exercise on a daily or several times a week basis. In that case, we recommend 750 milligrams per 100 pounds of body weight.
Okay.
And you can vary up and down a little bit, but if you take 750 milligrams per 100 pounds of body weight, 30 to 60 minutes before you exercise, you will fairly quickly notice a difference. So 750 per day for just optimal health, 750 per 100 pounds of body weight for strenuous exercise. The third kind of life stage that has different dosing is if somebody has a disease state, whether that be cancer, whether that be neurodegeneration, to help support the body in those times of extraordinary energy, fatigue, and challenge, then we generally recommend 750 milligrams times 2. So 2 servings, 3 to 4 times a day. What we have seen in that is that people with Huntington's disease, there's a doctor, Dr. Chris Tuckfield, who was watching the NIH study called the CREST study on Huntington's. Huntington's is like Alzheimer's on steroids. It's a terrible disease. It kills younger and faster. The NIH was trying creatine monohydrate on Huntington's patients. That's one of the studies that failed. Dr. Tuckfield decided, well, maybe I could give them heavier doses, 4 to 6 grams a day of creatine hydrochloride, and that might help because it was theorized that creatine would make the neurons more resilient in the face of these diseases. Whereas Huntington's normally kills in 3 to 5 years, Dr. Tuckfield has verified Huntington's patients that are out now over 10 years with no disease progression at that higher creatine hydrochloride dosing. That's a remarkable outcome for those people who otherwise would have already passed away from a really horrible decline. So that's the dosing that we typically recommend. I hope that answers.
Yeah. For someone like me, a low level biohacker, I'm not trying to do all this crazy stuff just to get a little edge on overall health, not just in the gym. My days of powerlifting and all that are done. I'm happy doing my half-hour long workouts at the gym 3-4 times a week. I do a lot of time under tension and really do focus mind body connection, and everything else is diet, lifestyle. In my mind, it's like you said, there's obviously 30 to 60 minutes before your strenuous workout. Mine doesn't happen to be that strenuous. I don't have any diseases or anything like that, but in my mind, I want to be the most optimal I can, not just for my cognitive, but my organ health and all that. Would it be feasible to say that I'm 200 pounds, so I would take close to 1,500 milligrams or 1,400 milligrams? In my mind, for supplements, would there be benefit of spacing this all out in smaller doses so I have it throughout the day, or it's mainly just do it before your strenuous activity?
Yeah, I would take a dose a day. You asked earlier and I didn't answer, do you need to take a break from it or cycle on? Your brain needs creatine every day.
Okay.
So I would take that maintenance dose of 750 milligrams every day. And then I would take a second, or if it's going to be a hard workout, a double dose.
Okay. Just for that.
The 750 per 200 per 100 pounds of body weight, 30 to 60 minutes before you work out. That would be the regimen I would follow. I still play hockey. I grew up in Minnesota and I love skating. And I'm typically skating against people younger than me. And that's my regimen. I haven't been to a gym in over 30 years, but I'm still pretty fit, and hockey helps with that. Like you said, diet and things I pay attention to. I take a dose a day, and then before I go play hockey, which is pretty strenuous, I'll take one dose per 100 pounds body weight. So on those days, I take 2 doses, which ends up being 3 for that day.
Gotcha.
But it helps me in terms of my endurance during the game and my recovery afterwards. Before taking creatine, I would feel like I got hit by a truck the next morning after playing. And now I hardly feel like I've skated.
Gotcha. But for biohacking purposes, there's no real reason to go more than that one daily dose per day. There's no extra cognitive benefits or organ health.
The circumstances in which I would take more on days that you're not working out as a part of biohacking would be days that I didn't have a good night's sleep. I would double up the dose. Or if I've come off an international flight and I'm going to potentially have jet lag, then I would triple the dose. It's amazing how it helps in terms of sleep deprivation and avoiding jet lag. I've been in 3 countries in the past handful of weeks, including Europe and China. I never experienced jet lag because I would take a heavier load of creatine before and after the flight to make sure that my body had the functional energy to withstand that fatiguing process of travel.
Yeah. What about for people having that kind of issues? Is there any reason to take it right before you go to sleep or right after you wake up, or as long as it's in your system?
Your system does a pretty good job of lowering it. That's exactly right. The time of day for health purposes is less important. It's more important for the timing if you're going to do strenuous exercise to take it before, so you've got the endurance. And then some people take a half dose even afterwards if it's been a really tough workout, just to accentuate recovery. But otherwise, in general, it really doesn't matter in terms of the time of day. I will say that this was something I didn't say earlier. I would make sure whatever creatine anybody is taking is good creatine. You cannot trust that the creatine on the market is all good. There's some good creatine monohydrate that comes from Germany. Most creatine, over 90% of it, comes from China. Some of the creatine from China is decent. Some of it is awful. You just don't know which one you're getting. Ours is the only American-made creatine. Ours is made up in Nebraska in a plant. Having an NSF certification for the creatine, which means safe for sport, or SQF certification, safe quality foods. SQF is important. And we certainly are proud that ours is the only American-made creatine in the market. Our facility is inspected by the FDA on a regular basis, as well as other governing bodies. Make sure you have a good quality creatine, because some of the stuff coming from overseas is contaminated with a number of different things that I won't go into detail now. It's been pretty horrific to see some of the contaminants or non-targeted ions that we have seen as we check different plants overseas. Some just aren't doing a good job.
Well, good. That was going to be my last question. What makes your company different? One of the biggest things you already touched on was quality control. Over the last 2 years, I've been talking to people, doing more research and seeing the problems within the US. You mentioned go outside the US of quality control on supplements. I don't want to buy anything unless I've talked to the person, the founder, or at least listened to them on podcasts to be sold that the quality control is being taken care of. You already touched on that. But with Con-Cret HCL, is there anything different or proprietary stuff that you have that's the reason why it's so highly bioavailable versus other creatine HCLs? Or is it just the quality control, which is good enough for me?
Yeah, well, it's all of the above. And that's a really good question, because if we are interested in our health, then you have to be concerned about what you're ingesting, what you're taking into your body. And a lot of people take for granted that the quality is there and that something is on the market. It's been vetted in terms of good manufacturing practices or quality control testing. Much of the time that's correct, but many of the times it's not. There was a report out that people bought a variety of products off Amazon and tested them. Many of them either did not have what they purported to have, or they had what they were supposed to have, but they had other things that were not healthy and not reported on the label. The quality is important. And those certifications I mentioned, SQF, Safe Quality Foods, NSF, Certified for Sport, are important. People who are concerned about their health, but are concerned about their paycheck, take a look at the elite athletes that have got contracts that are riding on them not triggering a positive drug test or a performance enhancement drug test, will trust our brand because of its certifications, its accreditations and things. In fact, it was edifying that, I believe it was last week or the week before last, Netflix has a show that's come out on quarterbacks, and they look at, I think, Patrick Mahomes and Kirk Cousins and whatever. In the 4th episode this season, Kirk Cousins was being profiled. It was in the wake of a home game, and he was at his house, and they were eating supper, pizza or something, and there over on his counter, you could see a jar of Con-Cret. And that's what people who know that they have professional careers and contracts rely on products like Con-Cret, concentrated creatine, because they trust them. And yes, it has to do with our certification, but then it also does have to do with the technological advancements that we made with this molecule. Creatine hydrochloride is the most patented creatine in the history of creatine. We made this breakthrough in terms of the creatine conjugation. We're awarded 8 patents on it. Now we share that intellectual property with the whole market. People oftentimes, because we've been around for 20 some odd years, still trust the Con-Cret brand of creatine hydrochloride because it's proven and people know that they're getting what they paid for and that it's gone through rigorous quality control and quality assurance.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially if you're going to start taking a supplement for a lifetime, which you can with this stuff. Some people will probably let quality go a little bit as long as they're getting the results, but this is a lifestyle change for quite some time. You know, that's.
I mentioned that the CDC was looking at recommended doses. It's so important as we age and normally lose muscle mass. Sarcopenia is a real thing. It starts to set in where you lose that lean body mass. And not only can you not be as active and as fit, but you, as you advance in years, become more of a fall risk. And then you have a real detrimental quality of life event. And that's something good to avoid. So creatine should be a part of your regimen for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. Well, Mark, I'd just like to thank you for coming on my show and put it out there for my audience who are interested in getting more research, checking out your website. Is there any other things like social media, or where do you want to direct my audience to?
Certainly, they can look up Con-Cret.com, and that's CON-CRET. There's no E on the end of Cret. That'll get them to a lot of information, studies, product overviews and things. You can find us on most of the Instagram and TikToks and other social media. I'm not on social media much, but we've got some good marketing people who make sure there's information to help folks understand what is being offered.
Well, I really appreciate your time, Mark, and I'm so glad because I'd gotten some product for this HCL. I haven't used it, but getting more information about it. And then as soon as I'm done with this, I don't even know what this company is, what they do. I'm done. I'll just switch over to you guys and I'm sold. Like I said, where I can talk to the founder, everything's about quality control. That's huge for me. So I'm a believer now.
Thank you very much for having me on the show. As I said, it's an honor to be here, and I'm pleased that you and others have an interest in creatine, biohacking, and better health.
Well, appreciate your time, Mark.
All right. Take care.